the Registered Dietitians at Copeman, Vancouver, and today we'll be discussing some nutrition tips and tricks if stress has gotten to your gut during this time of kind of quarantine and change of pace in our lives. So stress does have a pretty big impact on our overall digestive health. Stress has been linked to certain conditions like irritable bowel syndrome and peptic ulcers, for example. So today I'll just be providing some basic kind of at-home tips and tricks. Of course, this does not change the recommendation to see a healthcare provider for your own personalized piece of advice. So I'm going to be covering kind of a little bit of a variety. As you'll see, I have some products here in front of me. So I'm going to be covering things like nausea, change in bowel frequency, motility, as well as kind of stomach aches and pains. So to get started here, I wanted to touch on ginger. You'll see here I just have a regular root of ginger. Ginger is actually useful for nausea. So you can use ginger just as a tea. So you could chop this up and make your own homemade tea, or if you have it in a tea bag, it can work that way as well. Also goes great in salad dressings or as a little flavor enhancer to stir fries. So along with helping with nausea, ginger is also what's called a prokinetic agent, which is going to mean that it helps with the motility through our bowel. So how fast food's going to move from the first time we eat it to when we eliminate it. So that's the reason why I'm loving using ginger during this time. The next category I wanted to jump into would be things that are going to be useful if you're experiencing more kind of cramping in your stomach or aches and pains with stomach. So the key ingredient I'm looking at here is going to be peppermint. If I'm using this at home, peppermint's going to be nice and soothing. It's going to help to relax the smooth muscle lining within our digestive tract. The way that I'm going to be using that at home is through a peppermint tea. If you're using peppermint tea, you're going to want to brew this really strong. So I suggest taking 2 tea bags to brew it. Brew it for a longer period of time, more so like 10 to 15 minutes. And then before you actually go to enjoy it, actually squeeze out that tea bag to get the last little bit of extra flavor from there. So you can use peppermint tea as is. This is another product. This one is a mixed blend. So this is traditional medicinals. This is their Eater's Digest. I do like this blend of tea as well. It's a mixture of ginger, like we already discussed, as well as peppermint, and then things like fennel, which are also helpful for kind of gas and stomach cramping. So that's kind of another tea option you could use. If the tea isn't good enough, you can discuss with your healthcare professional to use something like an Enteric coated peppermint oil. This is going to be helpful because peppermint, since it does relax the smooth muscle lining, can make heartburn a little bit worse. So if you suffer from heartburn, I don't usually suggest actually going for the peppermint tea. I'd more so go for a capsule, or if you're just not getting enough relief from the peppermint tea. And this one here that I have in my house is called IB Guard, but you'd want to chat with your healthcare professional first. So that kind of covers the ones that I'm looking at using commonly at home if you're looking more so for stomach aches, pains, and cramping. The next ones I want to move into were some at-home tips and tricks when I'm looking at kind of overall gut bowel frequency as well as kind of bowel consistency. So if you're finding that this change of pace has really influenced bowel kind of motility, how fast things moving through your bowel, and you're leading more towards constipation, my first couple tips and tricks would be to 1, check in on hydration. So a lot of our lives have just changed, patterns have changed. So check back to see how much water you're drinking, how hydrated you are, as well as check in with your exercise and your movement regime. Lots of times when we have this big change of pace, we're not maybe outside as much. So kind of really checking in, seeing where you can add a little bit of extra exercise. That active movement does also help to activate our bowels moving a little bit better too. If hydration and exercise don't get you there, then checking in with fiber content as well. So if I'm looking at boosting fiber through diet, one of the ones for an at-home option that you could use is ground flaxseed. So what I'm usually doing with ground flaxseed is I'm taking 1 teaspoon of the ground flax, I'm mixing that into a cup of water, and then just having that before bedtime. So that's another way to add the ground flax. The reason I'm liking flax for constipation is that it's a mix of 2 different types of fibers. So it's a mix of soluble fiber, which attracts water and helps to kind of lubricate the bowels, as well as insoluble fiber, which provides a little bit more bulk to the bowels, also helping them move through the system a little bit better. So that's going to be an option there. If you're leaning towards the other direction, more so to looser bowels or diarrhea, then the fiber of choice that I have here would be to increase soluble fiber. So you can find soluble fiber in foods, for example, things like lentils and avocados. You can also find it in a supplemental source. This is just one brand option that I have here. This one is Flora IBS Relief. It's a partially hydrolyzed guar gum supplement. You're gonna be able to find other brands for it as well. The other option you could do at home that would be similar soluble fiber would be a psyllium husk fiber. You're gonna look for that to be nice and finely ground. One of the brand names for that is gonna be Metamucil. So this one's really great if we have looser bowel movements. It's solely soluble fiber for the most part, which means it's going to attract some of that extra water in the bowel, soak it up, and kind of form those bowel movements a little bit better. The other thing to keep in mind across the whole spectrum of these suggestions is that stress is going to play a big role in our gut in general all the time. So adding in any stress reducing activities is really important at this time as well to help combat any of these different digestive concerns you might be having.